And we are back talking about the Oklahoma Sooners recapping their 2023 season, which was, I'm not going to lie. I am 25 years old, and I don't think I've ever seen a season like this one. So it's pretty disappointing for me. But I'm joined today by Jalen Ross with the Sooner Sports Daily, and he has his own podcast. Jalen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Preston. How are you doing?
Doing good. Fighting a cold or sinus
Yeah,
infection or something. So I'm ready for that to pass.
yeah, me too. It's been awful.
Yeah, I don't know if y'all are familiar with it, but our weather in Oklahoma has just been crazy here. Yesterday it was like 70 degrees, and today it's
Yeah,
like 40 or something like that. It's crazy. So not good for the allergies. But let's go ahead and let's kind of just jump into it. So talking about it, it was a pretty disappointing season for a lot of Oklahoma fans. This is a season kind of like what we haven't seen before in terms of the record and I don't wouldn't say necessarily the product that was put out there because I feel like during the Lincoln Riley areas we kind of gotten this product before, but 6-7 that one's a hard one to swallow. It stung a little bit. So, what are your thoughts about the state of the program, where we're at, especially going into the 2023 season?
man. I said this on the Blitz period the other day. I didn't leave Orlando Thursday thinking that the walls were crashing in and that things weren't going well. I left that game with more optimism than anything because I think when you look at it, obviously you look at it on paper, you see that interlocking OU 6-7. Okay, you think you think that whole thing is just crashing down, but at the same time, and so let me try to get my facts straight here. 6 losses, 4 out of 6 of those losses, they lost by one possession. They could easily won those games had they not had a penalty, like literally a penalty, or one bad play or something like that. You think about the Baylor game. You take away that penalty before halftime that they got, or they might have scored on that last drive. Before, I can't remember. I just know if you take away that penalty before halftime that they got, you probably win that game. And obviously Baylor ran the ball down their throats. But West Virginia, you had the penalty on that Theo East touchdown, or not. I'm sorry, the Braden Willis touchdown. You had the penalty that should have been called on C.J. Colton's interception, which would have gotten you better field position, and then of course the missed field goal. Um, so there's so many different things I can point to and say that this team is really not that far away from being better than they were. I mean, I can't give you an exact record, but they're like one play away in each game from winning maybe 8 or 9, which is obviously way better than 6-7. But when you look at the game on Thursday, I thought they were going to go into this game and get tossed around. And that's why I wasn't so mad when they lost, because I already knew in my mind they're not going to win this game because Florida State has a good offense. They've got a solid defense. Oklahoma's run defense is terrible. Florida State's got 2 good running backs back there. But the complete opposite happened. I mean, they were in that game the whole time. And again, they could probably went down and took the game to overtime had it not been for 2 penalties on the last drive. So that's the biggest thing this year was, I don't think it was like, oh, lack of talent or, oh, coaches are terrible. It was a matter of this team was so undisciplined. And Brent even said that so many times. And it's like, people can say, well, you're the head coach, you can change that. Yeah, he can, but there's only so much he can do. He can scream at the players all he wants to. If it's not getting through, that's not his fault. But like when you look at the game wise, like Gavin Sawchuk and Javante Barnes, that 1-2 punch against a Florida State D line they're really good. Those two went out there and I mean they did something two OU running backs haven't done in years, or 2 freshman OU running backs haven't done in 30 something years. I think those two are going into next year, probably going to be a battle for who's RB1 next year. Could be Sawchuk, could be Barnes, and then you bring in, you talk about somebody like a Dalen Smothers, who I think can contribute next year, who's a 4-star recruit out of North Carolina, and then I mean, if Dylan Gabriel comes back, like I said this on the show as well, if Dylan Gabriel comes back, I think Marvin Mims is coming back. So if Marvin Mims comes back, you're pretty much returning all your core pieces from last year, minus Braden Willis, minus Deshaun White. You're bringing all your core pieces back next year, plus the addition of a top recruiting class and some transfer portal guys who are going to contribute heavily, you're talking about a team next year that very well could end up winning 10 games. I'm not going to say they're going to win 11. I'm not going to say they're going to go undefeated because that's not going to happen. But this is a team that can probably turn it around and make a New Year's Six Bowl or do something way better than this year. And so I honestly like, yeah, I'm just like you. Like, it's still impossible to think this team only won 6 games this year because it's never happened in my lifetime. It's never happened in your lifetime. But I find it hard not to be optimistic about next year. And I see why people would be. I see why people would have doubts. But, every OU fan doesn't follow the team like we do. So they're probably not familiar with how good of a class they're putting together next year or, all the intangibles and all this stuff that you can't see from the outside looking in and all that. Like, for us that follow the team religiously, we can look at it and we can say, this team's going to be pretty damn good next year for the next couple of years. Everybody I've talked to has belief in Brent Venables. Everybody I know has belief in Brent Venables. Like, there's nobody out there that's fearing for his job. Now, it's a different story if you go into next year and you win 5 or 6 games again. Then you got to have a conversation. But I don't know. I find it pretty hard not to have optimism about where this thing is headed because you just see you're starting to see guys buy in. Because I'd be lying if I said I didn't see improvement over the year. I mean, again, they were one play away in games and they may have lost and all that stuff, but they played better towards the end of the season. Like, especially defensively. I saw them play better towards the end of the year than I did at the beginning. There was progress on every level. So I don't know. I mean, I the season just ended, but I'm already excited to get into the spring and start drinking the Kool-Aid of, all these guys who are going to contribute from day one and all that. Like, it's going to be an interesting offseason. When you talk about who else is to come in the portal, the guys you've already gotten. I mean, 2023, some of the guys in the recruiting class are playing right now as we speak on ESPN doing their thing in the Under Armour game. So I don't know. It's going to be an exciting offseason, but I find it hard not to be optimistic about where this thing is going.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to not be optimistic, and I've been trying to say this all year, and I don't know where you agree with this, but Venables and this staff, they came in last year. They're behind the 8 ball in the transfer portal, behind the 8 ball on the recruiting trail, and basically at this point, they're having to take best available, not necessarily best fit. That's on the recruiting trail and in the transfer portal, and ultimately, you saw what that pretty much does to a team this year with Oklahoma. And so that's why, like, this year, I think it's a little bit easier to be excited going into next year because you're like, oh, we see the pieces they're bringing in. It's going to fit a lot better than this 335 and what Brent Venables wants to do. He's not just having to go out there and take literally the best guys that are left in the portal.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And and here's the interesting thing about that too, just real quick. This is not to rip on Lincoln Riley, but when Brent came in last year, and as soon as he got the job, he put together, like, on paper, the best ranked class Oklahoma had in a long time in 2022. So what he's selling to these guys is obviously getting through, and it's still showing. Because I know, like, a big question I got asked on the Instagram all season was, why would recruits want to come to Oklahoma right now? Or is this guy going to decommit? Is that guy going to decommit? It's like, look, I don't know what the conversations are that he's having with these guys, but they're clearly working. That you only lost, was it 4 or 5 guys in this entire class and
yeah.
replaced them with some really good talent?
Yeah. It's pretty incredible what we lost. I mean, think about it. You lost Malachi Nelson, your 5-star quarterback. You
Yeah.
replaced him with Jackson Arnold. You lost Zachariah Branch, but you replaced that with Jacquees Petaway. You gained 5 stars in Peyton Bowen and PJ Adebore. You do lose a couple pieces, but ultimately, I think this class is going to be better rounded because you've got talent everywhere at all positions, not necessarily just on the offensive side of the ball, which is what
Mhm.
Lincoln Riley had done primarily the entire time he was here at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I look at it and I look at the future of where this is going to go, and I'm excited. We got 3 easier games next year to start the season, so you got some time to figure it out. You did mention Dylan Gabriel staying, and I think that's my only concern is because I think there's been some rumors floating around that he might not return, that he might. And if Dylan Gabriel doesn't return, the question is, what do we do at quarterback for next year? Do you go all in with Jackson Arnold, which I'm not the fan of playing a true freshman at quarterback, or do you go out there and try to get a senior in the portal for one ride?
Yeah, I think you my thing with the portal is I don't know who's there because I know Grayson McCall withdrew his name, and that was a name I was interested in had Gabriel decided to do something. Um, I think Sam Hartman's still in the transfer portal, the Wake Forest quarterback. That'd be a guy maybe, ACC guy. So Brent's played against him before. Um, I mean, I
Sounds
don't
like
know.
he's
I
going to go to
think
Notre Dame.
yeah, I know
Yeah,
that's been the team that people have said the most. Now, I read somewhere that there are like 50, 57 quarterbacks or something like that uh in the in the portal, but I mean, I don't know who they all are. I don't know if like this is another situation where you find, I mean, not to rip on Davis Bevel, but you go in and you find a guy that's probably hasn't contributed a lot at his last school, and you bring him in to be your starter. I mean, I do agree it's not the best case scenario to start Jackson Arnold right away because I think people have a tendency to think that every 5-star quarterback is going to be what Caleb Williams was. And even Caleb Williams had his freshman moments last year. Like he wasn't perfect. Or, they think every 5-star quarterback is going to be just this
Trevor
guy that
Lawrence.
comes in from day one. Yeah, they're going to be Trevor Lawrence. Like it's not going to happen. It could, it's possible, but you never know. And so, and like I don't want to twist Jackson's words here, but when we had him on the podcast, I asked him that very question. I said, Dylan Gabriel's more than likely going to be coming back next year. Are you coming in to learn from him, or are you coming in to take his job? And he flat out said, he said, "Yeah, I'm coming in to learn. I want to learn from him. I want to, be a sponge, see what I can get from him. Uh, you know, Obviously I'm going to push him in practice. I'm going to do all that, but I want to take time to learn the leadership, learn the offense, which is true because Jeff Levy's offense is not easy, and and learning just he just wanted to sit back and learn because he's a true freshman. He wants to learn the ropes and see how this all works. And I'm like, okay, that's the best case scenario for a lot of guys. The thing with
Yeah.
Dylan Gabriel is I don't know what he would do because I don't think he's an NFL quarterback right now. He's not going to somebody's squad and starting. Yeah, he could be a day 3 pick, maybe an undrafted guy. I don't know. If he goes to the transfer portal, I don't know where he would go. I mean, there are obviously some schools that could use him, but you've got the Jeff Levy connection here. I mean, you're the quarterback at Oklahoma. Like that means something to a lot of people. So I don't know what he would do first of all, but I do want to say this though. Somebody did tell me that if Gabriel were to return, I don't think he would announce anything. He'd really just kind of let it all flow and ride into the spring, and he's still there. You wouldn't have to worry about him announcing something. Now, he could, I don't know, but that's just what I heard last week. So,
Well, and that's how it should be. I think we've gotten to this point
right.
now where make a big deal about whether they're staying or going.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I agree with you. I don't know what Dylan Gabriel would do. I don't think his desires are to go play in the XFL or the CFL because I don't think he'd make it in the NFL just yet. And then
No.
going to another system to try to learn for 2 more seasons, I just don't think that fits him very well. And again, it puts OU in a bad spot because there's not a lot of quarterbacks really, I think, left in the portal. Now, essentially, guys could still go in, whether it's in the spring or in the summer. And really, all you got left is Brennan Armstrong and that Georgia Tech quarterback. I think those are really the two that I think you would go look at.
Yeah.
But
I did forget about them.
yeah, that Georgia Tech quarterback, I'm surprised no one's picked him up yet. I think he'll be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I, if Dylan Gabriel leaves, I'll just start sunshine pumping it to have Malik Murphy from Texas hit the portal so that I can take Malik Murphy on my team because I think Texas is going to
Yeah,
blow
that's not
that
a
one.
bad one.
Listen, I think I've said it. I think Texas, Malik Murphy is the best quarterback for Texas, and they're not going to play him. He won't start.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, their quarterback situation is interesting because I don't think Quinn. I don't know if Quinn's all that.
I don't know what they're going to do starting next season because I feel like those
Yeah.
boosters are going to be calling for Quinn Ewers real quickly.
Right.
So, but we'll have to see how it goes. We'll have to see what happens with Gabriel in the transfer portal. It's going to be interesting. Hopefully, we hear something about Marvin Mims soon. Hopefully, we get that news, and hopefully, it's good news. Hopefully, he's staying. But again, that's another one of those guys where it's like I don't know if him staying would really help him all that much because of his draft stock. I don't know how much more he could improve by coming back for another season unless he had like a 15 or 1600-yard season.
Well, my thing with Marvin is I think next year, like if he comes back, he's automatically a Bolitnikoff guy. Like I'm not saying he's going to win it, but he is going to be on that long list of players, like as a finalist. He, I think the thing with Marvin is like the Iowa State game hurt him, the West Virginia game hurt him, and I know he had a big catch in that West Virginia game, but he also dropped a touchdown pass. I mean, he struggled a little bit, and then he would redeem himself. Now, the point I made on the show this past week was Marvin's last two games have been incredible. Like the Texas Tech game, he had that crazy catch. He was awesome. Florida State game, he had two crazy catches. And then he's a really good returner as well. So I don't know if maybe like putting those two games on tape, that looks better. I know he's already gotten his draft grade back and all that. And like all that stuff's already gone through. But I think the only thing that would be holding Marvin back, if he was to announce something like this isn't anything I've talked to him about or whatever, I think it may be like he just wants to see who his wide receivers coach is going to be. And like I know we keep talking about Malcolm Kelly and all that, and like I know he has a connection with Malcolm Kelly from the past when he was in high school. And if it is Malcolm Kelly, yeah, I'm pretty sure he would come back. I still think like here's the way I put it: if Dylan Gabriel is to return, that gives me an indication even more that Marvin Mims is coming back because I don't think Dylan would come back if his number one guy wasn't. And I see that as like those two have a conversation and say, let's run it back one more time. Let's go out here, let's do what we can, ride the ship and go get a college football playoff berth or something like that. With this year's class of receivers, I mean, you're talking about Jackson Smith, Jalen Hyatt. Uh, I mean, there's a number of names I know I'm forgetting, but next year, I mean, he's already a top guy in that class if he returns. I mean, like you said, he's going to have a big year. Maybe it's 1,500 or 1,600. But like him and Marvin Harrison are those two receivers in college football that are like the guys. So I don't know. I think it's better for him to come back just because of, like I said, how those select games went for him. And there was something going on. So I don't. Maybe scouts are picky about that, and they're like, were you getting in your own head or something? Because Marvin does have a tendency to get hard on himself. I mean, if he drops a pass, he'll redeem himself, but he has a tendency just to kind of let it linger. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to watch. Now, this is a situation where I think he would probably announce if he's coming back, just because everybody and their dog is talking about it, and he's just going to want to end it all and say, "I'm coming back." I know people had worries about his tweet the other night, which was like the little generic "love this school" and all that. But I don't know. I've been saying since November that I think he's coming back, and I stick by that. So
Yeah, and this wide receiver room, even if Marvin Mims leaves, I think it's still pretty good for Dylan Gabriel because Farouk is going to be a monster when
yeah,
Mims leaves. And then you've got Petaway coming in. You've got Nick Anderson. You've got Jaden Gibson. So, and then you've got Bunkley Shelton and a lot of those other guys that we really hadn't seen all season. So I think the wide receiver room is in a pretty good position, and you'll probably see them take one or two more guys out of the portal, maybe some veteran leadership for there. But overall, I think it's not in a bad spot, even if Mims leaves.
yeah, not at all. But I mean, even if he comes back, I mean, he's obviously the clear number one guy. He's the leader. He's the voice in that room, probably a captain and all that. But another thing with that is like the longer it goes on. Now he probably already gave them an answer and said, "I'm coming back." I don't know, but when you look at it with receivers, you're also fairly young there, and like Jalil Farouk he's raw, but he does have a lot to improve on. I mean, he had an issue with drops as well throughout the year, and as it goes on, you're probably going to have to get a wide out from the portal. But like lately, I haven't heard a single name in the portal. The last time I heard a name in the portal at receiver was Trey Harris, who ended up going to Ole Miss. So I haven't heard anything recently, which that gives me another indication of like they must be pretty solid on what they've got coming in and who's sticking around.
Now, when you're thinking of um, the drop passes, do you think that's more of an indication of just them missing a wide receiver coach, or just the players didn't develop well this season?
Well, I think that's an issue of I wouldn't blame coaching because like as a wide receiver coaches are they don't really have to teach you how to catch, but they work on it. Like in practice, they work on you stand 10 yards away from your receiver and catch the ball, or and you do that, or the jugs machine, or you have all these different resources you can use as a receiver. And I also made this point on the show too a couple weeks back when I was talking about like the whole wide receivers coach thing, and there were people that were getting on to LaDainian Washington because the receivers couldn't catch. I'm like, guys, I'm pretty sure he's teaching these guys, or he's having these guys rep catching the ball in practice because they're receivers. It's their job. And dropped passes are like a combination of, your eyes weren't in the right place, or your hands weren't in the right place, or maybe I mean it's really just those two things, or maybe you had the corners all over you, you can't even see the ball. Like it's a bunch of different things that happen. So I can't really say like it's a coaching problem. I doubt it is, but then at the same time, I mean, we saw Mims have that issue. We saw Theo Weiss had that issue at one point. Jalil Farouk we talked about. So I don't know. I mean, I think that's just kind of that's a player thing to me. Not that the players suck. It's just a matter of sometimes you're just not in the right spot.
Sounds like they need to do that thing. I don't know if you guys ever heard the story of the LSU coach during 2020, or it was whenever Joe Burrow was there. I think it was 2020 or it was 19. They had the goggles on, and the coach would like walk around and throw them the ball, but they couldn't see this way, so they could only see what was in front of them. And hey, it
Yeah,
worked because they're out there making money. So,
that's not a bad idea.
Drew, thanks for hopping on. We're talking about the state of the program for Oklahoma. So, give us some quick thoughts before we move on.
State of the program. Obviously, I'm the
You felt
ESPN, All American game. We got 7 guys playing in the game right now. Top 5 recruiting class coming in this year. I think there's a lot, to build on. Obviously, from this last year, yeah, it was a disappointing year. Going under 500, and I think a lot of fans didn't expect that. But at the same time, I think we saw it in the bowl game. A lot of young talent that is ready to step up and emerge, and so I'm excited about where Oklahoma is going, the direction, and everything like that. And obviously, the there's some more things to kind of shake itself out with, some transfers, some guys maybe deciding on their futures and stuff like that. But as a whole, I think we're moving forward, and we're in a good spot. So that's a little quick version. I could definitely go into dissect some stuff, and we have before, but just it's a reason for excitement, and we were down this year, but we're not going to be down for long, I think. So moving forward, I'm excited.